Welcome to Also Consider This, the podcast where we value nuance, perspective, and knowledge so that we all can be.
Also clever thinkers.
I am the second most famous Alastair on the podcasting scene.
And I'm Guo Feng.
Yes. Although a lot of the times Google says your name is Guang. For some reason, the transcription doesn't understand Guo Feng.
Is it?
Yeah, it just says Guang.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't understand why. Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we're doing something a little bit different. We're experimenting a little bit. Okay. So this episode is also called Also Consume This, also ACT. Right? The idea is that what we used to do before we podcasted was we just only consume things. Like if you're not creating content, you're essentially a consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of realized this after something that was released by Ali Abdal like a year or so ago. It's like encouraging people to make things, right? So he says instead of just being a consumer, also be a creator. So that's why we come here and talk.
So we become content creators now.
Yeah. We make things. Don't know whether good or not, but we try lah. So also consume this is basically our special one-off or rather experimental episode, right? Where we talk about stuff that we have watched or listened to or read before that that stuck with us quite significantly.
Yeah, and it is not brain rot content, so don't worry.
It's not brain rot content. And it's also not one joke thing. It's not just because it's more than one thing each person.
Yeah.
Yeah. It may be shock lah, okay? We don't proclaim to be very creative people.
Yeah, so we give thanks to the podcasting forefathers of Singapore. So
No, not forefathers, they're that old lah.
okay,
we're talking about people who are far more senior than who are a bit more senior than us. Okay. People who also gave us teachings
and give us some inspiration to start something ourselves.
So the format is this. For this episode, we will each share 2 pieces of content. We will explain why it's important to us or why it's something that gave us food for thought. We'll go beyond that rather than just merely introducing it. There's this podcast. I think people who attended the podcasting workshop at Yalabat with me, right? They asked me like, well, so what's like your favorite podcast, right? And I always tended to talk about this episode because this one is one of those podcasts that stuck with me. The podcast show is called 99% Invisible.
Yep, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, actually, you introduced me to that show.
Yeah, and I even bought their book.
Oh, they have a book?
Yeah, they have a book.
Okay, so the concept of 99% Invisible is a show, right, that talks about things that happen around you that you don't necessarily see.
Yeah, you don't necessarily notice. That's why it's called 99% Invisible. So it's like unknowing things that's around you in your everyday life.
Things you may feel but don't see.
Yeah.
So what do I mean by things you may feel but don't see, right? This episode is quite this episode is quite impactful. So this episode is from 2019. It's one that really stuck with me. So it talks about because this is not forgetting, this is a podcast from the West. I think it's from America.
Yeah, they're from Oakland, California. Because he always ends it and recorded in the studios of Oakland, California.
So it's not America. It's radical leftist kind of area. But the point is that it's very interesting to hear foreigners talk about us. That's why all this content, right? All these YouTube videos where some foreigner talks about Singapore always gets a lot of views.
Or like the travel vloggers.
Yeah. So the content, I mean, for some reason, I think some channels love to talk about Singapore, not in terms of political things, but just to describe us, because we just get a cheap thrill of listening to people talking nice things about us.
Yeah, like lauding on the plaudits.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, so anyways, this podcast episode from 2019 is by 99% Invisible, talks about Singapore. Okay, and it talks about something a bit morbid. It talks about cemeteries.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, incidentally, we are sitting on not a former cemetery ground, but like in an estate that used to be a cemetery, right? So we're in the Bidadari estate, right? And this used to be
a cemetery.
Cemetery with there's like Christian cemetery and the Muslim cemetery and all that. Singapore is a very land scarce island, right? We have millions of people, millions and millions of people living here, and of course, as we grow in terms of population size, we need more space to live on, right? And this episode is actually describing the conflict between honoring our ancestry, our ancestors, the cultural value of old cemeteries. All these cemeteries, right? Each grave has descriptions, especially Chinese ones, for example. They talk about the people that are from the family.
Yeah.
So have you visited one before?
The old cemeteries, not really, because
Like the
mine,
bun-looking ones?
I never really got into a cemetery because most of my relatives and my elders were in columbariums already.
Okay, so let me give you an example. I think like my great grandmother's one in Ipoh
Ah,
in Malaysia. So that's a traditional Chinese one, right?
the big one with like,
Yeah, with a circular, looks like a bun kind.
yeah.
So like they will put in names of like the children and the grandchildren. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's like basically your funeral notice in the papers. They put that whole thing
something like that.
on
There's a lot of description
Yeah.
about this person's background and family.
ancestry and things like that
Yes.
lah.
Yeah. So one example of like a Chinese grave that you can see in Singapore, because the ones in Lim Chu Kang one is a bit far and they've already been modernized. The traditional one, you go to Outram Road,
The Tan Tock Seng one.
Tan Tock Seng's grave
Yeah.
at Outram Road, at the corner of Tiong Bahru.
Yeah.
So that one is a traditional one. It's culturally relevant. The government can never take it away. You know, it's for philanthropists with such significance, they will never. It's hard for them to take away.
If I'm not wrong, there's also one in MacRitchie, right? Limbo Singh's one is inside MacRitchie.
But the one that is most accessible to the public is Tan
yeah.
Tock Seng's. You might even see if you're taking a double-decker bus.
Yeah, that one is very, very prominent because it's on an elevated.
Yeah, it used to be hidden
Yeah.
by trees, but recently they sort of like made it cleared up. When I went to the one in Ipoh, right, basically it's like you have all the names and all that. And what's interesting is that you could even see like names of children that were not yet born or never born. Because the way some Chinese families work, the traditional way, is that the names are preordained in the family book.
Yeah,
So
the
like,
家谱 we call it lah.
yes, so like the first child of this person, the second child, third child will already have this name already pre-selected for them. So the name would appear in a different color on that grave. Yeah. So it's regardless, it's of cultural value, right? Because we don't necessarily see them anymore in Singapore. Okay. And however, yes, we also have this need for land to live on, right? So
it's about striking the balance between our ancestry, our past, and our future lah.
yes, and the episode goes quite in depth. Because it goes into a past example of Bishan,
which is where we kind of close to us.
Close to us also.
Because our
we
alma
went
mater
to
was
school
there.
Yeah. And Bishan was one of the largest cemeteries on the island before it was developed into a housing estate. Right? It described why they needed to build that. It was also from there I understood why my ancestry has its columbarium there. So the Cantonese cemetery was in Bishan, and there was, through very tough negotiations, the columbarium, the association managed to get a columbarium out of a very small plot of land that was given to them by the government. So there was this corner bit of land that is next to Raffles Institution today. That is a very, very small percentage of the land that they gave up from the cemeteries. They got a columbarium, and that's where some of my ancestors are, right? This could happen because that was still not the last cemetery on the island. Now the last remaining traditional Chinese cemetery is at Bukit Brown,
which is also on its way out.
Yes, so there's a bit of a conflict going on there, in the sense that not conflict in terms of human emotion, but rather the need to preserve our cultural
Our roots,
our heritage versus the land that we need to live on.
Which this episode kind of goes quite in depth.
Yeah, it goes into it. It interviews people who are guides to the cemetery, because it's also
a heritage
site.
Yeah.
So also consume this. I think it's something that is worth listening to, especially if you live in Singapore. or care a lot about the culture of Singapore, this is something that is actually you do live and see and go by, but you just don't necessarily notice with your eyes. I mean, most people who go through Bishan today probably wouldn't notice that Bishan was once a cemetery ground.
Yeah, I think for me that episode didn't really pop out too much, but having listened to them for like even like before COVID was that I think the not just the episode itself, but a lot of the premise of their episodes are that they always goes about to find very interesting things about the world around them. So it's like I think when they featured Singapore, it's like, yeah, it didn't really jump up to me per se, but it's still a lot of interesting factoids and stuff that they actually uncover. And also what I liked about the show is that there's a very human touch. I think they are still one of the rare few podcasts around that doesn't do a video format, only purely audio. So everything is via, you hear through the
It's an oral AURAL
it's an oral
experience.
oral experience, and
It's quite similar to what you would listen to on the BBC World Service
Yeah.
in terms of the kind of storytelling that you get.
And then also the geeky part of me is like because the way how they mix down the episode and how you hear it is very traditional radio, like very like radio news stories, like those BBC World Service, they have like those Sunday nights, they have like this feature, they'll feature a story. It's something like that.
Like from the correspondence diary and things like that, right?
kind. So it's like very personal, and usually because the people who featured who the editors and the people who do the episodes, they curate the content such that it really speaks from the heart. So they find a pet topic that they like and they do all the research and they go and find the relevant people to interview and talk to. Maybe they I remember there was one episode talk about guerrilla public service, which was like people who like go around making road signs to help the neighborhood, even though they are not authorized by the authorities. So that's also another episode on 99% Invisible. And also the one that really stick to me from 99% Invisible was the episode about vexillology, which is about flags.
Oh, okay.
So that one I think is 141.
So welcome to Fun with Flags with Sheldon Cooper.
Yeah,
Something
but
like
it is that one was interesting also because the host Roman Mars, he recreated the episode on as a TED talk. So he was invited to TED and he recreated the episode on stage in live audience. But it was a very interesting one because he sat on the stage with like his laptop and his podcasting equipment. Then he just recorded the episode. It's just that because Flex is such a visual, there's a visual element to it, so that he supplements it by projection. But if you listen to the podcast episode, it is really, you just had to imagine. So he describes everything, then you have to just imagine it through your imagination. So it's like very back to like the roots of radio kind of thing. So yeah, 99% Invisible, highly recommend. Go and
Yes,
catch.
and also like back to this particular episode, right? It's a very well sourced episode. If you let's say if you're on your phone right now, just Google, right? Just search 99% Invisible, and the episode is called Life and Death in Singapore. So in particular, they focus on the Guang Wai Siu Pek Sang Ting, which is basically the Cantonese Association Pek Sang Cemetery.
Yeah, so
Right?
we
And
will link
it's
all
very well
these-
sourced.
Yeah.
It's like if you look at it, right, there's an article about what they talk about in the episode. There are lots of photos. It goes to what pre-war Singapore. They talk about HDB flats, how we managed to like the HDB miracle and all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And,
so we will link all these
will be in the description.
is in the description. So go and check it out.
Go ahead and check it out. I think it's worth your time, rather than consuming some rubbish, right? This is really well sourced stuff. And just looking through, they are also talking about how they have modern burial techniques, because some people still insist on land burial. So there are new burial systems and techniques from the government in Singapore. So they also described it inside this in the article. Yeah. So speaking of you were saying just now something about the way produce their shows, right?
Yeah.
It sounds there's this very radio quality to the way they produce their
Yep.
show.
Which just nice. It segues straight into what I want to share.
Yes,
To
because it's kind of
people-
related to what I was thinking about
Yeah.
our show. I describe it in very layman terms, right? Because you are an audio engineer, I am not. But I wanted this sound that's more warm.
Yeah. So the episode that I recommend is from this podcast called 20,000 Hertz. So it is about audio. How I first came to notice this podcast was because they did this. They talked about how the first episode I ever watched them on was about this how sound is relevant to marketing. That's another episode, but this episode really caught my eye and really stuck with me was because this episode is about the SM7 microphone. So the SM7 microphone, if you don't know right now, it is not this one that we are using, but it's the dream microphone that we really want to
That's
get.
the one that we cannot afford, basically.
Yeah, we can't really afford. It's like quite expensive for one.
If you want to see an SM7 microphone in action, just go and listen to Yalabat lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most podcasters nowadays use the SM7. It's the the third iteration of the SM7. Some of the newer ones are not even
SM5, you
SM7.
say?
It's no, the first one is the SM7, then became the SM7A. Then it became the SM7B. Then now the newer ones, because of how COVID has changed everything, everybody is going online and do the video conferencing. So they released one that's able to do not just XLR connector into an audio system, but it also goes into the computer. It's also a digital mic. So but this episode talks about the history of how that microphone came about, which was like how so the interesting part about this episode is that it was done in collaboration with the producers of the microphone itself, which is
Hashtag sponsored content.
Yeah, it is a sponsored content, but it is such an interesting episode that it really, really it's kind of
educational in its own
yeah,
right.
and it satisfy a lot of the geekiness that I have because like it talks about how they developed the thing, how they came up with like all these technologies that was applicable in like recording studios, and then it also talks about like how they started from a company that's an electrical manufacturing, then it became microphone manufacturer, which is the company that is in question is Shure lah. So Shure makes microphones and they made the SM7 microphone, and how they started with the Unidyne capsule, then how they squeeze that capsule into different products, which you can see in many of their so if you think of a microphone, you would think of the like a lollipop kind of look. That is the SM58, which is from the Unidyne capsule. Then they kind of evolved it into the SM7B, which is like there's this big sponge.
Yeah.
And then it was left untouched for about 30 years. Then suddenly in 2007, 2008, around that time, then suddenly like they saw the sales figures like, suddenly there was like a huge surge of people who are buying these microphones. Then the executives in show were like wondering why, like how come suddenly so many people were buying the microphone? Then they're like, then they started noticing that, because of 2007, 2008 was also when the iPhone was launched, the iPod was getting very, very popular. That's why podcasting was really, really starting to take off during that time. So all the podcasters started buying a microphone. Then so they traced the history of how they invented the microphone, how this microphone became so central to like pop culture or like into the psyche of the of everyday tech enthusiasts and also people who listen to podcasts. And then they also talked about how in the early days, this microphone was actually just used in the recording studio, but then it found a second life in like podcasters, then
live streamers,
and then because of COVID also, then it kind of exploded into this whole big trend that everybody has. Like, this is the preferred
I mean, you shared the episode with me, and well, as much as you are excited about it, the storytelling by them is far better.
Yeah,
right? It's a very interesting story. That's why there's so much material for you to go on for the last the last few minutes, right?
Yeah.
It's really quite a rich
And-
story. There's
and-
quite a fair amount of things going on.
Yeah.
And the thing about this episode that I quite like is that the way the thing is laid out, the storytelling is really elegant, right? It doesn't go too geeky to the point because you're an audio engineer, so you have certain perspectives and certain things you look out for in the content. I think as a layman, I think if you listen to it, you will still it will still be of value to you because it's quite an interesting story.
Yeah.
At the very least, it's like this podcasting microphone that random cutesy live streamers are using. It's also got a history with Michael Jackson and the Rolling Stones.
Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
Then even they had like it even has certain roots with Elvis.
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
like because Elvis started sure going into the mic business and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. It is not a very long episode. That episode is actually just about 20 plus minutes long. So it's not very long. You can just listen on a commute.
Or just listening to when you're doing your gym workout, right? I think you're
it's
about
like-
done. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about done. So it's like it's a very, very well produced episode. And he even do like a explanation into how the mic works. Like how he enjoys using the mic, what settings he uses and stuff like that. Then you can hear an A/B comparison. As much as you could do, try to listen to the episode on a pair of headphones instead of on speakers because you can really hear the
Or
difference.
good speakers.
Yeah,
At least
good
good
speakers,
speakers.
yeah.
Yeah, like on big enough speakers. It doesn't have to be like audiophile speaker type things. but-
Yeah, so 20,000 Hertz, the episode name is just called SM7, the mic that, let me pull it up again, the mic that shaped sound and culture.
Why
So,
don't you repeat that part?
yep, SM7, the mic that shaped sound and culture. The podcast name is 20,000 Hertz. Yep, so that I think was what I want to share. Then I think it's back to you again. So what's one other thing that
Okay, this one got no segue because
Yeah.
Okay, the first one got segue. This one not so elegant.
Yeah, we are not like Linus.
We don't have.
We are not
we
like
don't-
Linus Tech Tips.
because we don't have sponsors.
yeah.
If you want to sponsor us, please
Please let us know.
let us know. Yeah. We don't have Coca-Cola this week because it's not sponsored. We drink
Yeah,
water
yeah.
only. Yeah. Okay, so the one that I will pick for the next thing to consume. Right. This story is quite interesting to me because it's a documentary by Jeremy Clarkson that I've watched multiple times. Okay. The story is called The Greatest Raid of All Time.
So it's something about, I guess, Battle of Britain.
No, it's not Battle of Britain per se. It is World War II though.
Oh,
Okay, so the story talks about the first ever batch of commandos that the British produced. It was this idea by Churchill that you could have a small force that could do missions that ordinary soldiers cannot accomplish.
mm.
Yeah, because the idea is this, that if you have somebody manage to cause damage in a very critical and strategic point, sometimes you just cannot use large forces of soldiers or a material to execute the mission.
Mm.
So that's why these days you see special forces exist, right? Because it is, for example, when the Americans wanted to take out Osama bin Laden, and they knew he was in this particular place, right?
They turn to the SEAL Team 6.
Because they have this set of special soldiers to do it. Because it's not logical to send like battalions of people to go surround the area to
and
go
then
and
he
charge
may
him.
have already escaped by then because
Yes, and you need some bunch of people who are very, very specialized, very well trained, and very elite in various attributes to execute the mission.
so
So
this was their origin story. in
That's
that
the
sense.
origin story of the British commandos. One part of the story of the documentary talks about how commandos were selected.
Mm.
All right. So they talk about why they needed to exist, Churchill's idea. They talk about how they were selected, and the type of people that they selected were not
Your ordinary, like
they're
what
not-
you would normally think to be special forces.
Yeah, so so normally the assumed persona of special forces is like Jocko
Jocks, yeah.
Willard, right? Big guy, wake up at 4 a.m. and ask you to, all that kind of thing. They are not necessarily those kind of people. There was like a vicar, there was teachers in there, you know,
Boffins, basically scientific minds.
scientific minds, people who went to like Cambridge and Oxford.
Yeah.
They are not exactly they're not buff type people. They were people who were, at least on the physical attributes, when you first see them, they are very ordinary looking people.
But yet they are able to get the job done.
So the idea is because they prioritize certain attributes that traditional military men didn't prioritize. They prioritized ability to think. They prioritized the ability of the individual to make decisions on the ground, see the bigger picture, because they needed people who were more independent. Right? So that's the selection process. And because the idea was very new, it irked a lot of commanders in the regular forces, because they needed to pick people out, and then people just during the time of war, commanding officers were just not happy to lose men also. So but they got these people in and they trained them really hard, right? The physical training is very, very demanding. But the funny thing, or rather the amazing thing, is that because the training camp in Scotland, where the commandos were first trained in during the war, is still the same grounds where the British commandos train today. And they superimpose, like they put side by side, right, the videos footage from the 1940s with the video of
the 2010s,
the modern commandos in training. And the training, a lot of the elements of training that they go through are very, very similar, or exactly the same. The type of ropes that they go through, the kind of physical obstacles they have to go through, the fast marches they have to do, right? These are almost exactly the same.
So it's like you also it also shows us like a lot of these things are timeless, lah. How we select people, how we train, and how we basically prepare for war.
Yes.
In that sense.
And then they talk, and of course they trained them for something, but they didn't have. Of course, they were not trained for a particular mission in mind. But the biggest mission that they trained for was ultimately that they were deployed to. There was this is called the Raid of Saint Nazaire. All right, now known as by a lot of people in military circles, is known as, especially British military circles, is known as the greatest raid of all time. The reason was because there was this huge dry dock in the west of France, right? During those days, the Nazis occupied all of France, and they had a gigantic battleship, right? And those battleships nowadays don't exist anymore because naval doctrine has changed. However, that gigantic battleship, it was called the Tirpitz. It needed to be serviced. The problem with having military equipment and military, even our day-to-day equipment that we use, right? The point is that if you have this, if it's damaged, can you still repair it and continue to use it? Right? So the thing was that the only facility on the western seaboard that could service the ship was at Saint-Nazaire in France. And so
it's like a potential point of entry lah.
Yes, it's a weak point. So the British realized that, hey, if we manage to damage the dock, then the ship is like floating around, and it's like
nowhere to dock.
It cannot take damage.
So it had not say nowhere to dock. That's the only place that it has to dock.
Yes, so it's either they dock there, or they go through the North Sea through Denmark to go back to Germany.
Which will then they will bypass the Brits, right?
The Royal Navy, they have to go through Britain to get back to Germany to repair the ship. So they realize that there's a huge weak spot, but it's not possible to, at this, especially that point of time in the war, to deploy
huge number of
to try and destroy this dock, right? And not forgetting the dock was heavily guarded. So they devised a very ridiculously daring mission to send in the commandos under disguise to go as close as possible to the dock with a disguised ship to basically ram the gates of the dry dock and destroy the gates. And
then also destroy, sabotage the dock.
Yeah, basically it's a sabotage mission.
Yeah.
So they I'm not going to spoil it. The mission was a success. That's why it's called the greatest raid of all time. But I will not spoil it, and it's very hard for me to spoil it also because there's so many amazing details of really courageous men who were super injured, but they still managed to pull through their mission. There were people, and not just the commandos, the Royal Navy officers that were involved in control on taking the ships there were also they also had stories of immense bravery in there, and sadness because of course not everybody made it home, right? But the commandos really did really well for themselves as a show of their ability. And
It's like even though they were like kind of like a proof of concept, but it really like put the commandos into the forefront of
yes,
of like
it's a proof
military,
that this works.
Yeah.
To the point, after that mission was completed, Hitler basically said that any captured commando will be shot as a spy, because it was so dangerous to have commandos doing this kind of missions.
Because like even a small force can have so large impact in the tide of war.
Yes, and it caused, basically because the mission was successful, the Tirpitz, the huge battleship, right, basically was useless, and it got sunk in the end. Yeah, it was not. It was basically kind of like neutered as a force. So there's so many details in there. There's so many stories of individuals, that not just of the mission but of their lives. There's so many details that really you should just have a watch of this documentary. Link of it for YouTube is on the show description.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really worth your time watching it. Because and if you think about it further, also consider that actually this is also the prototype that many special forces in the world
came
adopted.
from.
They adopted
Yeah.
these doctrines and things like that. Yeah, it's quite interesting to look at.
Yep. So from one podcast to another podcast, then so you shared YouTube. So I will also share something from YouTube, okay, but it's a video channel. So if you have been on YouTube for a while, you might have heard of Wendover Productions.
There are two types of Wendover production videos.
Yeah.
The long ones are called Wendover Productions. The short ones are called Half as Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. So basically, the founder of Wendover Productions and all these things, he's
No longer hiding his face also.
yeah. He's called Sam. So he started another channel called JetLag the Game. So they go on this like amazing race, but I call it like amazing race, but it's like on steroids, because how they do it is that it's not really about how Amazing Race used to be, which is like, oh, you get to see the sights of the world. They don't really feature the sights.
It's Amazing Race-esque, but it is not the Amazing Race, because there's no fixed start and end point.
Yeah.
There's only a fixed start point, but there's no fixed end point.
Yeah, and every season they may do a different format. So
it's like advanced tag lah.
So yeah, so there are a few formats. So there's like tag. So then there's another format called hide and seek. Then there's a few other formats that only lasted one season because it's very experimental. Like the most recently concluded one was, I think, the snake one. So they go to Korea and they travel around the Korean train system. So there's like who can form the longest snake. So it's like imagine the train network like from the north of South Korea to the south
Busan.
of like Busan area or whatever lah. So it's like you can, how long can you make the longest journey you can make? Then so if you got stopped, then it passes on to the next person. So they have a team. They have like 3 people. So they take turns to like who can form the longest snake. So that was like an experimental thing. Tag and hide and seek is usually their main 2 formats. But the experimental formats one was really, really interesting, because I think what this channel does is that it doesn't just do like it isn't just watching the game, but it also shows you like how they can evolve the mechanics to keep things interesting. So it's also like an insight into game design. So it's like and how they film the episodes and how they pulls you in, because they don't tell you the rules straight. So they like pull you in, okay, this is the start, then slowly they'll review like one rule after another one rule. So you don't get overwhelmed and you can just focus on the action. And so their release schedule is like every 3 months they have like one season. So the most latest one, which is still ongoing as of this recording, is that they are season 15, where they are doing an all-stars version. So they invited people who have taken part in the previous season, so they have like 3 teams of 2. So they have like some guest stars. Then they are playing a game of tag. So, but the interesting part about this whole tag is that because you're playing a three-way tag, right? So the other 2 teams that's trying to tag the people who are running away can either choose to work together, or they can choose to like not share information. So that's another dimension to the game. Also, is like quite exciting because how it's not just like a run to the finish, because you have like different obstacles along the way. They have to play like
Challenges
lah. Yeah,
Like
correct.
they open an envelope and then they do something on the spot
Yeah,
kind of
correct.
thing. What I'm amazed by what they do is that the production, not say quality, the production costs are not very high, so to speak,
Yeah.
as compared to the Amazing Race, because effectively it's just the 2 participants filming themselves all the way through.
Yeah.
And then it's phone calls, video calls, and all that. They don't have like a cameraman running alongside them.
Yeah.
It's like Amazing Race, the camera people are running along the teams.
And it's like they have to book out the whole place if they're gonna do like a challenge.
Yes,
Kind of thing.
but it also means that they have to start doing all these very obviously sponsored points of content, right? Like when the Amazing Race came to Singapore, they had to like squeeze Phua Chu Kang in for no apparent reason, right? It's like, yes, Gurmit Singh, we love Gurmit Singh, we love Phua Chu Kang, but it's kind of weird to have him there, lah. It's not like very relevant to have.
And it was like a big hoo-ha. It's like the whole Singapore was in on it, that kind of thing.
Yes, it's kind of weird, but whereas this one is more a bit less acted up. It's more organic. Yeah. So I quite enjoyed that part, and it's not like forcing down, because it's not a travel show, right?
Yeah.
Because Amazing Race is kind of travel show-esque. They're trying to show you what they are visiting and all that.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole country. In this case, you just see things that you see. So like the recent one they did in Europe, they went through Liechtenstein, right?
Yeah.
And then the mountains are like, whoa.
Like, that one was like, who can capture the
most capture the flag type.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you should. It's something that's very hard to describe why you should watch it, but you should just give it a try.
It really is very interesting to the like. Every single time you watch, it's like a very different experience, because they are constantly evolving their game mechanics and stuff like that.
Yeah. So yeah, just give it a try. I think it's very hard for us to tell you. I find it quite hard to explain why you should watch it. You should just go and watch it. It's very hard to explain. But when I watched it, then I got hooked.
Yeah.
Because when you first explained it to me, honestly, like that time when we were just hanging out, I didn't really understand what was going on. But when I watched it, I could, and then it's like,
because you also are formulating ideas. Oh yeah, you should do this next. Then like,
yes,
you can maximize your.
Yeah, and even I got my wife to watch it, the one that's captured the flag one. That one was quite good. So yeah, do check out JetLag the game. Yeah. So in conclusion, I think we're just sharing some stuff that we feel is educational, worth your time, can probably give you some food for thought, rather than just mindlessly scrolling TikTok.
We are trying out this format, so hopefully there's more to come if you all do enjoy it.
Yes, for more anti-brain rot content, please follow us on our social. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
On Spotify, you can also get your podcast on Spotify,
Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, etc.
Yep.
And thanks for following us. Thanks for listening to us.
See you soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.